Hi, this is Russell Glasser, host of the Atheist Experience. You know, the Atheist Experience is made possible by volunteers and the generous support of viewers like you. If the promotion of positive atheist culture and separation of church and state are values that you hold, please consider contributing by becoming an ACA member or visiting our product page at evolvefish.com under the Partner tab. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Atheist Experience. I am your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Martin. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What just happened right there?
We suddenly got... All right, it seems to have passed.
Wow.
Thank you for that. However, we just got this blur in our
I don't know if you guys
headsets
heard that at home or not, but wow.
Maybe God was sending us a message. In which case... Okay, big guy. All right.
You know, I have just been playing the new horror game Soma, and I don't handle loud noises well.
Sudden
right
bursts of electricity are startling to you.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Today is Sunday, October 4th, 2015, and I'm your host, Russell Glasser, and with me today is Martin Wagner,
Howdy.
and I already said that.
You did, yes.
Yeah.
But
we're a live call-in public access
rudely
show.
Interrupted.
Yes. Atheist television show based in Austin, Texas, dedicated to promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We are available through live stream. We're not a public access atheist television show. Why haven't I done
Because
you would think after 3 months I would have this new location figured out.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you remember to update your files.
Right. Yeah. See, the thing is, I read the intro and then I'm like, I should change that. And then an hour goes by and the show's over and I'm like, all right, there's nothing I'm forgetting to do.
Because you've been playing Soma.
Right. Now,
Okay.
just for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
We are
But that was
available.
2 more days, though, in which you did not remember to change that file.
Yeah.
You know?
So we are primarily a live streaming show at ustream.tv and also YouTube, and the official Atheist Experience website is atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback by commenting on the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, or you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. If you enjoy the show, please check out our related podcast, The Non-Profits, currently airing on the first and third Wednesdays of every month. You can find links at the Atheist Experience website, and the next Non-Profits will be this week on Wednesday. And
Always a fun listen.
yes, currently, since we go to the show every week right afterwards, the current location is Threadgills North, 6416 North Lamar, and we'll be arriving at around 6 p.m. or earlier.
Okay.
You look surprised.
Well, no, I'm glad that you guys settled on a place close.
Yeah, close-ish.
Yeah.
No, it's actually pretty close. Very short drive.
Yeah.
Anything interesting or unusual going on? Or is that it?
No, that seems to be long and short of it. I was very sorry to have missed the
Can we go ahead and queue up Jeff on line 1 and we'll get to you when we finish talking?
Yeah. Last year the Bat Cruise did not conflict with the film festival. This year it did, so sadly. So I'm very sad to miss everyone, but I hope to catch you on the next one because I understand it was a great time.
Yeah, we had a wonderful trip. The Bats were a no-show this year for some reason.
Really?
Just give me a minute, Jeff.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it was raining, and somebody explained to me that meant the bugs were out and easier to catch, and they didn't have to go hunting or something. But they just didn't fly out at sunset like usual.
Yeah, they were, I don't know, probably trying to renegotiate their contract with the bridge. Or
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah.
So, the talk by Hina Dadaboy was great, and the show was very entertaining afterwards.
Via various definitions of entertaining.
Although, I'm going to go ahead and give disclosure that I think we've had enough men's rights people calling in, and so I've actually told the crew not to give us those
We want
calls
to talk
this
about
week.
atheism and atheism stuff on the show today. Fine?
Right.
Let's do that.
Another week,
Religion.
maybe we'll talk about that again.
Yeah, let's...
But you're good if you didn't like Matt and Hina's positions last week. You won't like ours either.
Right. So it won't be any different. So let's talk about more religion-y things.
Jeff.
Yes. Hello.
Hi. You're live.
How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
What's up?
You're on. What you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick call and kind of discuss, maybe get some of your thoughts on the most recent mass shooting there out of Oregon. First of all, I just want to express, my condolences and the families involved. Who might have been affected by the tragedy. But just to kind of bring it back to a larger point, I just wanted to see your opinions on what you think, if any, religion had a role to play in this. If you believe that there's something, the atheist community could have done better to try and prevent it, or kind of what your thoughts are on it.
So to clarify your point, this guy was openly online as what was it? Spiritual but not religious, something like that.
Like I said, I don't know. I haven't really. It's so depressing lately these days. I just try to not.
I felt bad about trying to hunt down the guy's name within a few hours of the shooting, because I realize every time one of these shootings comes up, and it happens with distressing regularity these days in the United States, but people make the very valid point that if the perpetrator's name is publicized all over the place, that is in itself a motivation for these people who perhaps lead sad little lives where nobody notices them, and they'll be like, oh, well, at least they'll be talking about me after I kill a bunch of people and myself.
Yeah, so the notoriety is what they're after.
Yeah, and so when you look into this kind of person's background, you are in some small way contributing to that. That said, I also, okay, maybe he said he was spiritual but not religious, but at the same time, if this guy was on a survey saying, I don't like organized religion, in general, the atheist community is eager to inflate their numbers and say, hey, look how many people don't believe in God. And I don't think that guy believed in God. So technically he was an atheist. And that sucks, because people like Bill O'Reilly, for instance, has already come out and said, this just happened because, without God you have no morals and so forth. And that's revolting, because I need to point out that most atheists don't kill people, and by the same token, most religious people don't kill people. And so people who participate in mass shootings are a vanishingly tiny portion of the population, and you can't generalize without those kind of larger trends. So we as atheists ought to also be cautious about jumping on the bandwagon and saying, oh, religion caused this shooting, unless it did directly.
Yeah. Like if you find an 8-page list of prayers in some terrorist's hotel room, which happened after 9/11, then you can maybe rationally attribute, you can draw some sort of a connection there.
Right.
But I don't really. There are so many different factors. There is, again, as Russell said, the increasing media exposure of these events leads these dudes who live lives of quiet desperation to see a path to some kind of fame through infamy or notoriety, that they can latch onto through these kinds of things. You very much get the copycat factor involved.
Right.
So there's been a lot of talk on social media about, for example, the degree to it, like the guy lining everyone up and asking them if they believed in God. could very well be him reenacting the popular the Cassie Bernal myth from Columbine.
Right.
Where presumably, he asked her, "Do you believe in God?" And she said yes, and he shot her and became this massive Christian martyr.
And we heard similar stories about this guy. That he was going around asking people their religion and selectively shooting people. Yeah. And so it does behoove us on the atheist community or on the atheist experience to say something like, "God damn it, atheists, don't kill religious people, okay?"
Yeah. Yes, nobody kill anybody. That's that's there you go. There's an awesome life plan for you. There's so many factors involving people who have unfulfilled expectations, low self-esteem, a desire to get back at the world generally for whatever injustices they feel they've been victimized by. It's an unaddressed sense of narcissism, poor socialization. It's such a myriad of factors. And then, of course, there is the whole thing that this guy was able to get 13 freaking guns. Mm-hmm. Or, a thing that baffled his own father. And it's who needs, 13 guns, right? It's just there is this culture of. I don't know if it's violence, but it is something I think particular, perhaps, to American culture more so than other nations. I mean, other nations have had their acts of mass violence as well, but here we seem to have embraced this idea that the masculine way to solve your problems is to just go out and kick ass, right, or shoot a place, or just do whatever to act out violently. In whatever way, that's how a man just sort of handles it, and that is a thing that needs to be unlearned, I think, rather drastically. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's we could talk about so many things, but I think that in terms of solutions, no one seems to be willing to kind of pull their heads together and come up with solutions. What everyone seems to want to do is to find the particular thing that they are ideologically opposed to and point the finger of blame at that. And that doesn't really get. And in the meantime, more of these shootings happen, and more people die, and nothing gets done. So, right.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I would just say that, I think the main issue here is really, I see it as a mental health issue rather than a gun control issue. I mean, it would be my juxtaposition to the whole thing is you can enact certain gun control regulations, like Oregon has mm-hmm. certain regulations on banning guns in colleges and things like that, and it didn't seem like that necessarily had an effect on the overall shooting. So to me, it would seem like, he somehow fell through the cracks through our mental health system.
What? Possibly.
I'm going to give you a reason why it can sometimes be problematic to just jump to the conclusion, oh, this guy obviously had mental health issues and he was just crazy, so let's fix that. And let's blame the lack of mental health. First of all, there are there are a lot of, the vast majority of atheists don't go around killing people. There are a lot of people who live with various actual mental health issues, and they are generally, even something as simple as depression or I'm trying to.
Bipolar disorder.
Yeah, bipolar, that's what I was trying to think of.
Borderline.
Yeah. I mean, people like that not only have to deal with these difficult issues in their lives, but they also are dealing with a lot of stigma, where if you say, I'm dealing with this particular mental health issue, people have been encouraged to go oh my God, you might be a murderer. Let's do something about that. And another issue with this is that there are sort of cultural motivations that encourage people. What am I trying to say here?
Just the point is that you don't.
Like saying somebody is crazy doesn't explain something, because you're only judging them as crazy after the fact based on the thing you just saw. It doesn't tell you anything about what you should have been looking for.
Yeah.
And it also downplays stuff like, I do believe that there are a lot of times when religious motivations come into play, and it's not enough to just say that person was crazy. It's like, maybe we shouldn't be pushing this belief system on them where, where you think that it's a good thing to die for your faith. And in this particular case, this guy I've read was on 4chan a lot, and there was this ridiculous thread where he was like, I think I'm going to kill some people. And they're like, ha, hilarious. Here's some advice about how you can kill people more effectively, because they think it's a big joke. That's a problem too.
Yeah. It is entirely possible that if this guy had ever gone in for evaluation, perhaps some mental health expert might have said, all right, here we have narcissistic personality disorder, we have this going on. But we don't know that. And so because we don't know it, again, we can't do the thing of speculating and jumping to that conclusion. Clearly he had come upon, I was just going to say, his map of the world, right? His way of viewing himself and himself in relation to others, his relative value as a person, the value of his life versus that of others. There was clearly something messed up in all of that. That is not necessarily indicators of actual mental illness, though. Entirely sane people can rationalize themselves into just the worst kind of behaviors. People are awesome at justification. And that is just a matter of convincing yourself, that reality works a certain way, and no mental health problems required. That just involves, I think, being poorly socialized, kind of living inside your own head a bit too much, and not really getting out, making friends, interacting with others. He may have had unaddressed depression. He may have had some chemical imbalance, but we don't know. So we shouldn't just be quick to say, well, it's this.
And what I always say when anybody asks my opinion, which for some reason they do sometimes, but after a mass shooting like this, about like what cause can you boil it down to? I'm like, it's all of the above. It's overly simplistic to boil it down to a person's ideology, but the ideology has something to do with it. It's overly simplistic to just say this guy was crazy and should have gotten mental health treatment. That probably would have been helpful, but that's not the only thing. The availability of guns might actually be a factor. That's another thing. You can't just, simplify things down to one cause and say, oh, that's the thing, we've solved it.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah, and I didn't mean to be, over generalistic on, certain mental issues.
But it's worth discussing.
People are on spectrums, and they're all over the place. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of a discussion of, what issues are out there that we can try and get ahead of and try and solve. Is mostly kind of what I'm trying to think of. Is like, what do you think are like any solutions that we can even remotely pose?
That's beyond my pay grade.
I think it's it's gonna, again, not an expert, so don't take me all that seriously, but I see an actual sea change in American culture necessary. There is something about our general, and again, I just say American, yes. I mean, there's mass violence other places as well. But we seem to be the country that, on the graph of citizens randomly mass killing other citizens is like, oh,
we are one huge outlier.
Yeah. And so perhaps I think that we do need to address the overabundance of not just guns in our culture, but the attitude towards violence as the solution to things. We need to address why, and we need to and find some way to correct this whole notion of if you do one of these things, you'll be deplored, but we will at the very least give you the notoriety you seek, because there will be nothing on the news for several days but your picture and your name and your face and your manifesto and whatever it is that you wanted to communicate to the world. But action is going to be needed, and rather than just finger pointing and blame and words, but good grief, where do you start now? It's because it's just such a fustercluck.
Also, I just want to say in general, going back to the 4chan thing, internet culture is weird. And I mean, I say that as a guy with a master's degree in software engineering. I have a mostly love but a little bit of hate relationship with the internet. And I think, and I'm not in any way proposing a solution or a course of action, but I think that one thing that is unique about the current time we live in is that people get more and more used to interacting with people in sort of an abstract way and either completely love them or completely hate them based on a few things that they said, and just, like boil them down to one personality trait and dehumanize them.
Yes.
And I feel like there was at least a little bit of that going on here, but again, I have no, I love the internet for a lot of reasons, and I don't have a solution for in what way this changes the way we think about other people over time.
But I think it does. I mean, it has an effect. It's got to have an effect, because if the entirety of your social interaction is, Reddit or 4chan, and it's not like actually getting with folks, then yes, it's very easy to think of people as just NPCs in the game of your life.
Yeah.
And so rubbing one out just doesn't seem, well, phrasing, Wagner.
Different crime.
Yes, dehumanize, just treating them as if they're not fully human. That's exactly why it was so easy for all the channers to just make a big joke out of this guy, his declaration of violence, and and offer strategies, right? Because to them they were completely able to remove the human element from it, and that's possibly because they're just up there on the chan boards all the time, and
right.
That's their human experience. It is.
Anyway, I think we're gonna move on to another caller.
It's always 2020.
One cent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, why don't you wrap up?
Yeah. Last thoughts.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, hindsight is always 2020. It's impossible to tell, if someone on the internet's actually serious or not. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate the question.
Sorry, we can't give you the definitive answer.
Because Russell usually does solve all world problems right here on the show.
It's true.
But this one is beyond even him. So it's tough. So.
All right, guys. Take care.
Okay. See ya.
Nobody shoot anybody, okay?
Yes.
Ever? Really?
Stop
Please?
killing people.
Jeez. Can we not just have the shooting thing going on?
We are going to queue up Damiehl in Florida, and we're going to talk for a couple minutes, so just hang out on the line for a minute.
Yeah. So, mad world, huh?
Yes. The Pope was in town this week. You might have heard.
In our town?
Excuse me, in the country.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, I thought I would have heard if he'd been in Austin.
Yeah, you probably would have.
Yeah.
There probably would have been a lot more traffic.
Yeah, no, but I wouldn't have cared because I would have just stayed home playing Taken King,
right.
Not caring. So.
But some obscure media outlets might have mentioned the Pope was around in the United States. I mean, it was a tiny piece of news, right?
Yeah.
What's up with everybody going crazy about the Pope?
Crazy in what way? I mean, it's. I don't know. Maybe some people are sort of committed to this a hope or this idea that he is going to be, that he's some great progressive reformer, which he consistently proves that he isn't. But I don't see why that should really be a problem for anyone to really grasp, because there's no way that you're just going to expect the Vatican to elect a new pope and have him completely undo all of the doctrine and all of the rules under which they've been living and their positions on things. He came out. He sort of did a few things that made some folks think that he would be a bit more proactive in fixing
You mean years ago?
Yeah, years ago. Like when he was first installed, the thought, that he was
came
there to
out
sort of
and said some platitudes which sounded like major direction changes for the
church. He shut down this one bishop somewhere in Europe who was like just living high on the hog.
I mean, the bishop was like Timothy Dolan, was it?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it might have been. He was just, he was living like a fundamentalist evangelist here in the States. He was just sort of
Right.
enjoying the money and and shut him down completely.
I mean, don't get me wrong. We should evaluate the things the Pope does on a case-by-case basis. So sometimes he says things that sound good, and we should all be glad that if the church is not necessarily changing, at least they feel like they need to pander to the more progressive wing of Catholics.
So, for instance, least they're aware that the brand is in danger.
Yeah,
right?
so
that there is some definite problems that, public relations-wise, that they need to at least make a show of addressing.
So the Pope came out and said, like a couple years ago, if somebody is gay, if they want to be a gay bishop, who am I to judge? And people were like, oh, it's a new direction for the church. Without catching any of the nuance that the bishops scurried in behind him to point out, which is, oh no, we're not saying it's okay to have gay sex. He's just saying everybody's a sinner and you need to ask for forgiveness about that, and it's okay to have gay thoughts as long as you suppress them, because bishops shouldn't be having sex at all with anybody. And, when you come right down to it, these proclamations don't do anything. And so, I don't know, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
You want to say anything else?
No, only that I think we should stop caring about the Pope generally. But unfortunately, the world has decided that he is some kind of a world leader, that he is someone whose proclamations need to be paid attention to, as if he were the president or the prime minister of some great world power. And I don't see why that should be the case. The RCC has wangled that prominence for themselves for, I guess, several centuries. And so, but he's just the leader of a church like any other.
Anyway, we'll get back to the Pope after this call with Damiehl in Florida. Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Hey, Russell. Hey, Mark.
How you doing?
How you doing?
Ooh, hang on. We're losing him.
We got sound issues.
Hang on, Damiehl.
Don't you die on me.
Hang on, Damiehl. We're fixing your audio.
Oh. Well, now I sound louder to myself.
Yeah, they turned everything up.
Okay.
I'm like prepping for the ear-destroying.
All right. Try again. Say something else.
I don't want to die.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, there we go. We hear you. All right.
Stay with us.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your question, Damiehl?
Oh, I was wondering about a verifiable online source that I could learn about.
No, we're not getting this.
Hang on. Oh.
Guys.
Sorry.
Oh, wait, now we can
No, it's
hear
not you.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's me. Try again?
Yeah, try again. Just very close to your mic and sing of that.
All right. I was wondering about a verifiable online source.
Okay.
About the historicity of the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Created by vote. Which is the Council of Nicaea.
Okay.
There are a number of scholarly works that I've mentioned over the years. I think the main one I go to is a guy named Friedman who wrote the Bible, and then there's another book called Who Wrote the Old Testament or the New Testament by somebody else. Do you have any more specific question? I recommend the Friedman book.
Yeah, there's I have that one sitting. There's one called Who Wrote the New Testament. There's quite a lot of work out there.
Yes, we're here in the ACA library.
But he was asking,
a guy named Mac.
Yeah, but he was asking specifically for online sources, talking about history of the Bible.
Not that I would recommend this generally as a primary source, but you should check out Wikipedia because they usually collect a number of good sources that you can follow up at other links.
Yeah, because Wikipedia article is like just a general starting point, and then if you follow the citation links, because it is kind of interesting. If you're interested in that kind of scholarship, just learning about how the Bible itself was structured and edited and put together, and the early years of the church and early Christian writers like Origen and people like it's fascinating to read and learn up about it.
public service message: kids, don't use Wikipedia as a primary source.
Yes.
Don't do drugs.
Yes, and don't copy your term papers off a Wikipedia page.
Oh God, don't do that. They'll catch you.
They will catch you this fast. Yes.
But go on.
Well, I wanted to tell Martin, right? He had a huge effect on my friends. He now has a 57 count group of atheists and people who really helped him out. I wanted to know that he's really affecting the world in a great way, and he's living on through my friend in a way. Of all the greatness Martin did that, I want to give him great kudos and not forget that.
Oh well, thank you very much.
And one other thing, I was wondering about selling Christian crosses, right? I made a ton of them. Those little disciples crosses, wire and horseshoe nails. Back when I was Christian. And I was wondering about selling them still, but putting scripture in there that would... What was that?
Okay, I think they actually got
The
some.
sound
I think they got some
issues
decent
aren't so
volume
great.
on you. Keep going.
Well, I didn't want to just give them for waste, but I wanted to also see if I could sell them to the Christian community.
So you're a former Christian.
So you're a former Christian, and you used to sell Christian merchandise, and you want to know if you.
eBay?
Sure. I don't know. I mean, if you're okay with if your own personal conscience, if you want to like find some church or find some some company that sells Christian merchandise.
I would almost just say donate them somewhere and take the tax write-off.
That might actually be the right thing to do, right? Because if
Like-
this is like inventory from a business you used to have, and you're probably still having to pay taxes on the inventory, so
I'm not a salesman, so I don't have good advice on this, but I would think that if you want to unload a lot of merchandise, you have to wheel and deal among the clientele, and that just might be more than you're willing to do now that you've presumably stopped being a Christian.
Well, I wanted to hear your personal ideas on it, because I used to sell them with the tracts in, of course, right? I was getting the gospel and saving souls.
okay.
Instead
All
of
right.
putting tracts in there, I wanted to put specific scripture and commentary just to boost critical thinking and see if I can plant some seeds.
Oh, I
Right.
see. So you want to like stealthfully slip some free thought into this Christian merchandise packaging.
I don't know. I mean, it's douchey when religious people slip religious tracts into like kids' Halloween bags.
Or they have those fake $10 bills that they leave as tips in
Oh
restaurants.
God, those are the worst.
Yeah, that one just says, "Hi, I'm an asshole, but I'm not going to tip you real money. But here, this fake $10 bill will save your soul." It's like, no, don't be that guy.
I don't feel sorry for people who don't get tips. Here's the
Yeah.
world's smallest violin.
Thank you, Steve. But I don't know about that. I would not feel comfortable doing
Yeah,
that.
I like to be upfront with people and talk to them about atheism if they want to hear about it, because we're not those door-to-door douches.
Yeah.
Oh no, it won't be anything too in your face, right? It'll be good, of course. It'll be all scriptural. Everything will be good.
Well, I mean, from what little we can hear, from what you're saying, I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be my thing to do, but you just have to sort of have a discussion with your own conscience
Right.
about that, I guess.
Yeah, we don't have any advice. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could help you out with that, but I personally would not try to. I mean, I know you're saying that's not what you're going to do, but I wouldn't. If you're gonna if you want to unload some Christian product, I would just be inclined to unload it to get rid of it, and yeah.
But I don't really want to help the cause.
Yeah, well, you figure, I mean, it's out there. Christianity's everywhere, so, one more Christian with a, cheesy little wooden cross that they hang on their wall isn't going to really boost or do anything above it. The people to worry about in terms of the cause and, to which degree, is atheists really need to be out there opposed to something. We need to be worried about the Ted Cruzes and the Marco Rubios and the Mike Huckabees and the guys out there who have like real political muscle, and they're trying to swing this whole theocratic thing, and so that's kind of where we need to take our battles. But some little old lady who wants to have a little extra cross to hang around your neck
Right.
or put on the wall.
Could we go ahead and let Damiehl go?
Yeah,
and
that's
Martin
done. But
just
thank
go
you.
on?
Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks for calling, Damiehl. We just could never hear you properly. It was
Yeah.
some kind of...
That's okay.
Yeah.
What were you saying? Are you?
Well, no, I was just saying, pick your battles and,
put Ian Blake on the line. Keep going.
Yeah, that's...
Oop, I shouldn't have given the full name. Why do I have the full name?
Well,
Sorry.
maybe he's one of these people who goes by two names.
Okay.
Who knows?
Jim Bob.
Yeah, that kind of thing. No, I was done.
You were.
I was pretty much done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ian, are you there? Do. I'm gonna go ahead and wait this one out.
That's fair enough. Yeah. I
Right.
don't really have enough battery juice to go online
So,
surfing.
or maybe not.
No, I'm here.
Oh, hi.
Thanks.
Hi, there you are,
Oh,
Ian.
Hi. I was just waiting patiently.
Thanks
to
to
at
Flying
least-
Spaghetti
Yeah,
Monster.
we just now got you piped into us. So thanks for calling. What is your question?
Where do babies come from? No. So
Russell
I'm
won't
rec-
tell me, and I'm...
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah,
older,
you
Martin.
sound great. You sound great.
So I'm recently back in school, studying economics, and I'm.
They have human sexuality classes.
They
if you
do,
really
you're
want
right.
to know.
Russell, we are listening politely to Ian's question.
Yes, we are.
Talk about that later. Yeah.
So I'm back in school, and I'm surrounded by, well, more proselytization than I'm used to.
Oh, goody.
Yeah, I know, right? So recently, I ran into, it was like, these people. I love a good pitch, so I walked out. Like, there's these people sitting outside, so I walked up. It's
Are we
like,
talking about street preachers right now?
pretty much on campus?
Okay.
Yeah. But they were just like sitting with a board. I was like, oh, what's this thing? And it turns out they were Jehovah's Witness. And I was like, that's cool, man. I'm good. I'm just gonna, And they said, oh no, I want to talk to you about the thing. So I said, all right, you want to talk about it? And then I kind of laid out my kind of shut down the conversation argument, which basically goes like,
Never
God,
think your
logic-
argument's going to shut down the conversation. Just telling you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's hear the
Go ahead.
the story. Yeah.
All right, so God, Yahweh, explicitly cannot exist because for the New Testament, Yahweh is from where all goodness comes. If it is a thing done by Yahweh, it is therefore good. Eternal reward or punishment for finite crimes is immoral, which usually works pretty well.
It does.
Well,
Okay.
if someone is not used to hearing that kind of argument, it could sort of befuddle them a little bit, and
That's
they'll have to
fine.
let me contact my pastor and get back to you on that sort of a thing.
Yeah, I think people in general are sort of unconsciously a little uncomfortable with the idea of hell, but they've managed to rationalize it in some way.
Well, I know that, for example, William Lane Craig's routine is that, yes, he accepts the first premise that you put forth, Ian, that God is the source from which all goodness comes. And then if the atheist decides to rebut with, but what about evil thing X, Y, and Z? The line is that God has moral justifications for doing those things. Not that it's up to Craig to say what those are, but suffice it to say that they're there, and God knows what they are, even if we don't, because He's smarter than us, and He declares Himself the victor of the argument at that point. And so, and that just kind of reminds me of Hume's line about arguing with people who have renounced the use of reason,
Right.
And being
But
anyway,
let him finish his story.
So.
In presenting that, absolute or infinite reward or punishment either way for finite actions. All life on Earth is finite, so it did trip the person up a little bit. But he then came back with the idea that Jehovah's Witnesses don't either believe in heaven or hell, which was interesting, and that threw me for a loop. So then I had to go to my Old Testament rebuttal, which looks like...
I just want to say, this is why we start so many conversations with what do you believe and why do you believe it? Because you don't want to assume something about the person's belief and spend a lot of time arguing about something that they don't even think in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But
anyway, note for the future.
Thank you. So that kind of threw me. So then I went to my Old Testament argument, which looks like it was immoral for God to punish Adam and Eve for eating of the tree of the difference between good and evil, because prior to them eating, they didn't know the difference between good and evil. And he says, oh, well, of course they did. It was like, but no, they couldn't have, because that was the transformation. They were naked before, and they didn't know their nakedness, and after they ate the fruit, then they discovered their nakedness. So there's clearly some kind of transformative cognitive thing going on, and to punish... You don't punish a 2-year-old for touching the stove. You care for them. You look after them and say, you shouldn't have done that. It was for your own good. But God explicitly punishes Adam and Eve. And then that one as well didn't go quite as I would like it to go. So those are my experiences.
What was their response to that?
Yeah.
What was their response? What did they say?
It was just basically that, of course, God is God, and God is in a moral position, and anything that he does is justified. As like, well, no.
So Christ thing, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, but clearly they couldn't have known the difference. So why would you? It's immoral to punish them. Is like, well, of course they knew the difference, because he had it in his head that God is the source of all goodness, and so he was justifying his predisposition as opposed to taking in what I had to say and actually like analyzing what the argument was. It was just like not dealing with that and just relying on what his definition of God was. Well, so I was hoping for your analysis, or maybe a better argument for, in particular, the Old Testament and how to refute kind of that version of Yahweh.
Actually, well, yeah. Do you want to go?
I tried to look on it from a story editor standpoint. It's why put the tree in the Garden of Eden at all then, right? If you didn't want them eating of the fruit of it, and if he had to have a tree which grew fruit that would magically make you distinguish, like why did God need a tree, right? Like why a tree? Why fruit? Why does eating fruit make a completely morally innocent person suddenly cognizant of the difference between good and evil? If God
what does God need with a starship?
Yeah, it's like if God, did not want Adam and Eve for whatever reason to comprehend the difference between good and evil and have the knowledge of that difference, why magic the fruit of this tree so that it would give whoever ate it that knowledge, and then explicitly tell them, it's like saying to your kids, you have a couple of 12-year-old boys, and you say, now, don't look at my massive porn stash outside in the woodshed. Just don't, okay? It's a fucking amazing, massive porn stash. There's anything you could imagine. There's, blow-up dolls. There's all kinds of, there's this guy doing a pumpkin. It's the most amazing porn stash you could ever imagine. Don't touch it. I'm referring to the porn stash in the woodshed, next to the tools, behind the tools, kind of to the left. That porn stash, yeah, with like the amazing thing with where everyone's in oil and rolling around in chocolate syrup, yeah.
Martin, don't look at that. This is too much detail.
Well, I was just kind of warming up to the metaphor here, okay. But it's sort of like, yeah. So why tell them? Why tell them the tree was there at all? Why put the tree there? Why have the fruit of the tree able to do this thing? God created it all. So just none of it makes sense from the ground up, and
So clearly, I agree with you guys. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I got a different take.
Does it involve porn? But then I don't want to hear it. So
sorry, no porn for you today, Martin. I mean, first of all, I agree with both of you. It doesn't make sense. But you are dealing with somebody who starts with the assumption that it's gotta make sense, and then any kind of mental twisting and contorting that they can possibly do to justify it making sense, they're gonna do. It's like if you've ever tried to argue about continuity errors with a die-hard comic book fan. It's like, right? Like,
Well, those are the people who really jump on the continuity errors, though, and then they angrily email the writers.
Where did nobody ever told us Superman has the ability to pull off his S and make a cellophane net and throw at people? How does that make sense?
So Red Hood is canon. It's canon.
Right. And when did he get the ability to teleport and make illusions out of himself? I have a grudge against Superman too. But anyway,
Let's not even get started on Man of Steel.
Right. I haven't seen it deliberately. I'm not that big a comics book nerd anyway, but it's like you are arguing about the internal literary merits of this story. You are trying to explain why the story doesn't make sense. And since it's all fiction, whether you're talking about Superman or the Bible, there are no rules. They can just come up with any thing that sounds halfway plausible and say that's the way it is because the premise is the Bible's definitely true about everything it says. So I don't play that game. I don't argue about details of the Bible. Whenever somebody throws a Bible verse at me, I'm like, that's interesting, but I don't believe the Bible, so who cares?
Yeah, it's the Star Trek rule.
Yes, that is what I'm getting at. I just didn't want to say Star Trek again.
We can talk about porn some more.
How did that girl get that? Never mind.
What does God need with a Star Trek?
But I mean, the bottom line is there's no reason to believe any of this stuff. It doesn't make sense. It's not verified by science. The Bible was written by a bunch of people who were just trying to make sense out of the world, and the story is really not that good. So all you really have to say is, well, that's a cool story. I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Well, the reason why I engage, actually, is, for one, I want to frame an argument that makes kind of internal sense to the story as they are presenting it. But also, so Sam Harris relatively recently interviewed a granddaughter of Fred Phelps, and she was saying how she had a Twitter exchange with this Jewish guy pointing out the kind of internal inconsistency with what was being said, or was being preached at the Westboro Baptist Church, and that was like the seed that got her to change her mind and leave with her sister. So
I'm coming at this from a perspective of someone who never was religious. So maybe I don't have the full picture on what changes people's minds. But in my observation, you never change someone's mind immediately by going for Bible contradictions. You might plant a seed in the long term, sure.
Right, which is why I'm going for a logical inconsistency. Internally, that works narratively to the story presented, but is logically inconsistent. Like that's the how I'm trying to frame these arguments. And I think that the New Testament, my argument, works very, very well to someone that is like, oh, well, that's actually really,
right.
How does that work out?
But in the case of a Christian, they always have a trump card, which is, well, God is much, much smarter than us, so we don't have to understand it because he had his reasons. Yeah, that's always gonna jump out of that argument.
Or they might go ahead and concede that a particular Bible story might not adhere to some absolute strict rules of logic, but it doesn't really matter because there's a moral message or something that is being taught to us, and that's what we really should take out of it. So, every believer is different in a lot of ways, and so pointing out the illogic and the ridiculousness of the Garden of Eden story might work with one, where with another they would completely dismiss that and say, "Oh, well, I only take the Garden of Eden story metaphorically anyway. My reasons for believing are X, Y, Z." So, because I've often talked about, like, my big inconsistency that I love to talk about are the 4 different resurrection stories from each of the 4 Gospels and how they're widely different accounts
Look up
resurrection.
Dan Barker's Easter Challenge. That's a good one.
I did the thing on the blog about 5 years ago where I talked about like the resurrection, where I said choose your own resurrection adventure, and even something like that, they'll say but there may be differences, but they don't really matter. In aggregate, they all sort of tell the same story. And again, what you're supposed to get out of it is, I guess, just the sense of glory and majesty that God's kingdom on earth
It's
is
all
coming.
poetic and shit.
Et cetera, et cetera. So they have a way of. I guess it just all depends on. You need to find. It gets back to what do you believe and why do you believe it, and then sort of from what they feed back to you, build your arguments on a case by case basis, and see where it gets you. At least in terms of, if nothing else, getting them to listen, even though you don't expect them to agree right away. They might say, well, I've never thought of that. And if you've done that, that's at least headway.
Dude, that's really all I'm looking for is, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
But thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right, thank you for calling.
No worries.
Take care.
All right, so I am actually going to go to, I guess it's Jesus in Mexico on line 1. And while we're doing that, so here's a little more about recent stuff about the Pope. So first the Pope comes and says stuff to Congress, and then people are all excited, like, oh, isn't he great and much better than the old Pope. And then he decided to meet with Kim Davis, or maybe decided is a bit strong of a word.
Right. Maybe had her sprung on him, sort of.
Yeah, he met like a couple dozen people in private, and Kim Davis is the clerk in Tennessee, Kentucky, one of those. Kentucky.
Yeah.
There's a lawyer in the audience.
Yeah.
Kim Davis was the clerk in Kentucky who got sent to jail because she refused to enact the new Supreme Court law that people are allowed to get same-sex marriage licenses. And then all of a sudden people were like, why is the Pope meeting with this guy? And apparently since then there's been a little bit of official backpedaling from the Vatican, where the Vatican said on Friday, the Pope did not mean to endorse Ms. Davis's views, and it also said he gave her no more than a typical brief greeting, despite what her lawyer described. Instead, the Vatican said that Francis gave only one real audience to someone later identified as one of his former students, a gay man in Washington, who says he brought his partner of 19 years to the Vatican embassy in Washington for a reunion. The Vatican spokesman emphasized that the meeting with Ms. Davis was arranged by the office of the Vatican's ambassador in Washington, not by anyone in Rome, including the Pope. Who cares?
Well,
I mean,
it's kind of fun to sit on the sidelines with our popcorn and watch all this unfold, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But it's at the very least, it's the Vatican sort of looking at which way the weather vane is blowing socially and culturally here in America, and understanding that, we need to sort of draw this balance between our doctrine that, says that homosexuality is not of God, but at the same time, how do we not look like bigots?
Right.
And so...
And I'm not going to be... And the Pope has even pretty recently said something about gay marriage destroying the culture or something like that. I don't have an exact quote, but he definitely said something like that. And I am not impressed in the slightest about the fact that after there was a whole bunch of public backlash saying, oh my God, why would he meet with this anti-gay bigot? Then his spokesman comes out and clarifies, we didn't really mean to specifically endorse her.
Yeah.
So
See,
I'm just saying.
It's all about trying to protect the brand. It's a business, and,
Yeah. Okay, do we have Jesus yet?
Hi,
Hello.
Jesus. Hello, thank you for calling.
Thanks for answering. Well, I'm from Chihuahua, Mexico, like the dog. It sounds kind of weird, but it is a city.
Okay.
And
know.
I recently had a daughter. She's going to be 1 year old in the 16th of this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Martin. And I do know that you, Russell, you grew up in an atheist household or not religious,
Right.
At least. Okay. I don't know about you, Martin, but
I grew up I had a Christian upbringing.
okay, great. So I'm an atheist, and everybody in my family is Catholic.
I've heard that about Mexico.
Of course, yes. Everybody's Catholic, except for me and my baby's mother, which is great because we're on an agreement and we know we don't want our daughter to be Catholic or anything else. If she doesn't want to, of course, but if she wants to, that's fine. And that's where my question is going. I don't know if we're going to take the approach of not even acknowledging that everybody's Catholic, or our families are going to do that even we don't want to.
My first question would be, are you facing a lot of pressure from your family, both sides, about your child's religious upbringing at the moment? Or is it an uncomfortable topic of conversation that you have with them?
Do they know that you're
we're
atheist?
both really open about being atheist.
Okay.
Everybody knows that.
Okay.
My mom is the most religious out of my two parents. Her mom maybe as well, and well, actually no, her dad. But anyway, they're both families are really Catholic. They don't talk to us about that, and we make fun of some things, and they just don't talk about it because they know how we think. But they're starting to push about when is she going to get baptized.
Okay.
I kind of look like Jesus, and my name is Jesus. It's kind of, I don't know, it's a hell to go through that. So they're saying like she's going to grow up seeing Jesus in our house. My mom and my dad have these images, the Last Supper and all that stuff. And they're saying that I should go to church because I get invited really often to do the crucifixion and that kind of thing because I look like Jesus. So they want me to be that person who's going to take her to church because I kind of look like her.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird. It's bizarre.
It's tough.
Well, Jesus, if I'm hearing you right, I think there are actually two very distinct questions you asked there. One of them is, how are you going to introduce the topic of religion to her as she gets old enough to understand it? And the other is, how are you going to deal with parents pressuring you to do something that you want to do and trying to kind of throw their weight around and contradict the thing, whatever it is you decide to do with your own daughter?
Yes, and that's actually the contest because my main question was, what do you think about people being innately, I don't know, more prone to believe these things? I don't know if she's going to be like that. I don't know if she's going to think what me and her mom think about the issue. I don't know.
I'm going to say just a quick thing from the standpoint of not being a parent, but my quick suggestion would be, at the very least, you could always make sure that she knows as she's growing up that she can ask you and your wife any question she wants, and she doesn't have to be worried or afraid or embarrassed about whatever it might be, that she can always ask you anything and you'll be totally upfront and sincere with her. And you're happy to talk about anything with her, if it's that subject, or anything else, right? But that subject in particular, just say, look, you can always come to us. Your decisions are your decisions, but we'll always give you the benefit of our opinions and our thoughts and advice if you want it. That's my suggestion. Now over to the actual parents. Yeah.
Well, I don't quite believe that it's right to say that people are prone to be religious or not be religious. I think people, kids are prone to be social and generally go along with what they're told. And it's not until much later in life that they start to strongly develop their own opinions about things that might contradict stuff that they've been told. But a kid who is, I mean, there's the obvious fact that most people who are raised in the household with a particular religion are overwhelmingly likely to just pick up the religion of their parents. So the question about what your daughter is going to believe, you've actually touched on a bit of a pet peeve of mine that I hear from a lot of atheist parents, which is, well, I don't really want to, impose my beliefs on her, so maybe I just shouldn't tell her anything. And I'm like, that's nonsense. You're her dad. You're the number one biggest influence on her life. And part of your job as a parent is to make sure that she has as complete a set of information about the world as she needs to grow up as a productive adult. So you're not doing her any favors by hiding your beliefs. The nicest thing you can do for her is say, look, you are your own person and you can choose to believe or not believe the things that I have told you. But, if you don't tell her about religion, then the first place she's going to hear it is from her grandparents. And they're not going to be nice to your point of view.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, look, there is a belief about this magic man in the sky called God who can do everything, and there's this book that was written a long time ago, and I don't believe any of it is true. But your grandparents do believe it, and they're going to talk to you about it a lot. Mm-hmm. So I know that you will make the best decision. That kind of trust will tend to make your kid trust you back. But she could grow up and be religious, and that's okay, because you'll still love her like you love her parents, or your parents already.
Of course, yes.
As far as church goes, I wouldn't let your parents take her away and bring her to church behind your back. But I would certainly say it's okay to just take her to church with your parents and observe what happens at the service and talk to her about it and discuss the things that you may or may not agree with.
Well, I was thinking about that because, as I'm saying, everybody, even me, I went to Catholicism, or I don't know how it's called in the States, but I guess she's going to go, at least, or she's going to know about it, and all of her friends are going to do that thing, and they're going to be on weekends at the church, and she's not. I don't know how she's going to feel about being that outcast, I think.
Well, you can't know in advance how she's going to feel because everybody's different. But when she grows up enough to talk to you about her feelings, then you can listen and be supportive and be a good dad.
But that is a thing to think about, though, because as you mentioned, kids being very social, and she will get to a certain point where if it's known that she's the only kid in her class who's not a regular church attendee, that could lead to just bullying or anything else, just these regular little cruelties that kids are capable of. And so that could just be, she'll be different. And being different is, never a good thing. So that is at least something to think about, and maybe, think about some preparatory strategies for addressing if it ever comes up.
Okay.
Well, that was my question. More or less, that's what I was thinking.
All right. Well, good luck to you. You'll need it, like all parents do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, and keep up the good work. I love the show.
Well,
thank you.
Thanks so much, and again, best wishes to your whole family.
Right.
All right.
Bye.
So
okay,
long.
so we're already over time, but the way things have been going in this studio, I don't have to care anymore because we don't have a tight schedule to stick to. This is, I guess, we're into what would be the after show if we decided to stay in the old studio.
You want to take a couple more? I'm good for a couple more.
Well, we're going to do a lightning round. I don't want to take any more calls, and that means Kenneth, who just popped up on the board. No, you missed the cutoff. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
But we will get to Francisco in Austria and Robert in Florida. But it's the lightning round, so you should try to make your point as brief as possible. Let's take Robert. He's been waiting the longest.
Yes.
Or if you already put somebody on the line, just bring him up. Quick, come on, guys.
We got a crew, solid crew, by the way. They're really doing so. Thank you, crew.
And obviously, we're still working on some technical issues. I just went to a board meeting this morning where we discussed buying more equipment. We've got a budget for it. Things are just going to keep getting better. So for you people who keep emailing us and saying, I like the show, except this, the technical quality, I have a complaint about this or that, just trust us. We're gonna keep getting better.
We're working on this. We've never built our own studio before, so we're all just kind of noobs. Robert?
Yes.
Hello. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
We hear you very well.
Okay, I wanted to ask you about apologetics.
Uh-huh.
So you must have heard the watchmaker argument a few million times by now, yes?
Correct.
Well, I've told you a million times not to exaggerate, but yeah.
Why is it? I looked it up. It's a really old argument.
Mm-hmm.
But
William
why
Paley.
still a watch? Why not? Oh,
say again.
I don't hear. Why is it always a watch and never a cell phone, a Roomba, anything else?
I think if you have a competent apologist, then it does sometimes become a cell phone. But if you have a less competent apologist, they're just reading things and then reciting what has been claimed to work in the past. So you don't necessarily have a lot of evolution of apologetics.
Although, Ray Comfort has his amazingly dumb variant, which is the Coke can. Right? He holds up the Coke can, or just a painting.
That's only 100 years out of date.
Yeah, but it just, the simple-minded way of thinking. It's like a painter needs a painter, so apparently a universe needs a universer.
Right.
Or whatever, right? It's this. You understand the simplicity of this kind of linear thinking that they do. But yeah, so why don't they update the watch argument to something more 21st century? Well, some do, I guess. But at the same time, the failure of the argument is always based in the same thing, which is, well, first off, the watchmaker argument is premised on the notion that you're walking through a natural landscape, say the desert or the beach or a forest, and you come upon this thing that is clearly an artifact. So if you are saying to yourself, well, here's an artifact, here's an intelligently designed object, and I know that this is the case because it is distinct from its environment, then essentially what you've just done is admitted that the environment is, unlike this artifact you have just found, an undesigned, naturally occurring phenomenon. So the watchmaker argument essentially refutes itself.
Okay, can I just ask one more quick thing?
Yes, you may.
Sure.
And I'll go.
Yes.
What's up with the trees? Why does it always look at the trees? Why never the lawn, the flower?
It sounds like you're developing a whole stand-up routine right now. I don't understand why Christians always talk about trees. Yes. What's up with trees?
But really, it is the trees. It's always the trees.
Well, they want to point to the beauty of nature or something, and and I always say, okay, yes, well, trees are very pretty and sunsets are very pretty, and you can look at those things and say, God makes pretty things and He loves us, and I'm like, well, fine. So let's talk about Ebola, or let's talk about a puddle of vomit in an alley, right? Those are all. So the world has a great deal of beauty, and it has ugliness, and it has everything in between. And you're very much cherry picking if you just want to say, but look at the pretty thing outside, right? So that's again. Just simple-minded thinking in terms of not very deep apologetics, and the reason it works on a lot of people is because most believers don't think that deeply about their beliefs. They just believe them because they feel nice, and it gives you a nice little happy fuzzy feeling.
Right.
So, but thank you for the calls
and
the funny questions. And who's next?
Thank you. Swear to my God and hang up on me.
All right.
I can't hang up on you.
Yeah, but they will.
Hey guys, hang up on him.
But they're hanging up on you right now. And
yeah, you're an idiot.
So.
Okay.
No, you're done.
There's what? What? Yeah, one more, and then we're going to Threadgills. And if you are ever confused about where we are going to dinner right now and you're not listening to the show, go to freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, and there is a nice little fact page that I have added to the top.
Pinned it right to the top.
Yep. So you can find info about how to call, where to go if you're in town, and where to go for dinner afterwards. So those are things you can check.
Okay, so last call.
Francisco in Austria. Hello?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hello, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. You hear us?
Hello.
Yeah.
I want to. Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Okay. You might have the stream still running, which means you'll hear us twice. So turn it off.
Yeah. Mute the stream if it's not muted. And anyway.
I already muted it.
Okay, good deal. We can hear you great. What's your question, Francisco?
Is that I'm from Colombia, but I've been living here in Austria for a year, and a lot of people that I'm mostly in common here is with Latin Americans. And even when they have lived for so long here in Europe, and they have been able to be outside of much less religious cities and such like that, I feel that many of them just don't really get it out of their system, and even after so much time, that it doesn't go away. So they thought that I don't know if it's because of it's so ingrained in their head that they have to keep it, or is maybe they really are very how would you say, they just don't want to lose it. They feel they will be something very bad to lose.
Well, that's often the case. Are you talking about? I'm sorry. Are you talking about like people? Are you talking about just other Austrians that you meet, or?
People also from Latin America.
Oh, so Latin American citizens living in Austria, other ones that they've been in Austria for a long time, which is a more secular culture, but they still haven't lost. Well, that's not surprising. Yeah, that's not surprising when you think about it. I mean, you don't, you never really kind of shed your cultural skin, when you go overseas.
Sometimes
that much. Sometimes you do, but yeah, it actually there's always going to be a bit of it, because I mean, I lived for the first 10 years of my life overseas in various countries. I was 10 years old before I actually ever lived in the States, although we visited it a few times. So it was like, the U.S. was like alien territory to me when we finally moved back. But
he was secretly born in Kenya.
Well, yes, but my long-form birth certificate says. It was. But of course, in every single foreign nation that we lived in, we also interacted with kind of the American and the Western community there. So just U.S. citizens, British citizens, what have you. And so I kind of got acclimated to what my culture would have been anyway if I had grown up in the States all that time. But at the same time, maybe it didn't quite take as much as it would have if I had just been brought up in the States. So yeah, I think perhaps one of the reasons why, for example, Latin Americans might go to Europe and still hang on to their religious background, again, is because a Latin American community maybe has formed there, and so they keep their same associations, and then the same kind of background of the culture, it just is perpetuated within those associations. And so yeah, you don't really you bring your home with you wherever you go. A little bit of your home always kind of comes with you when you travel, and so yeah, so I can see why they would do that. They would not all immediately become secular Europeans just because they lived in Austria a few years. Makes sense. Makes total sense.
Oh yeah, it's just that since I come from a very religious family, and since I went to Europe, first to Spain, then to UK, and then finally here, I've been with met a lot of people that are atheists, and that's why I really, in the end, that and my geology and paleontology studies really just build it up even more. That it doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. Is that each time I met more people, even from Latin America, I saw that the more time they lived here, and the more they talked to the people here, that they just started to shed little or even make less of it, because the main attribute they make of Latin America is like they be happy, have a good time, people, very nice to be with, and they don't really exert their religion here. So that's why I really feel that the people that I met here in Austria is quite the rare case.
Okay. Well, it's interesting to hear that. Thanks for sharing that experience. That's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But thanks for the call.
Yep. And thank you guys. You can roll the credits now because that's our show.
We are
and
done with
it's
this.
been a delight to have you as a co-host, as always.
Thank you.
Martin.
Thank you to our lovely studio
Thanks, audience.
They're behind the glass so that, yes, we don't have to...
Staring in at us like animals at a zoo.
Yes, so the experimental mind drugs that we are pumping into the other don't affect us as much. So we can observe our subjects as...
Yes, turns out that...
because we like science here.
The superpower nullifying ray beams are actually being channeled out there. I tricked them.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.